Welcome.
I worked retail for 3 years straight out of high school. Gap, then a shoe store, then finally a spot at Woodfield Mall in Schaumburg, Illinois, one of the biggest shopping malls in the entire country. 3 floors, over 200 stores, a food court the size of an airport terminal. On a busy Saturday, that place sees something like 100,000 people walking through it. I'm telling you the size of it because it matters to this story. Because something that big, that loud, that packed during the day, when it goes quiet, it goes a different kind of quiet than anything else I've ever experienced. Like the silence has weight to it. Like all those hours of noise are somehow still in the walls, and the quiet is just what's left when it all runs out. I worked closing shifts at a phone accessories kiosk right in the middle of the main corridor on the 2nd floor. My shift ended at 9:30, 30 minutes after the mall closed to the public at 9 p.m. By the time I finished counting my drawer and breaking down the displays, it was usually somewhere between 9:45 and 10 p.m. Cleaning crews and a handful of other closing employees were still around during that window, so I never really felt alone. Until the night I stayed late to do inventory. It was a Tuesday in February. My manager had asked me to do a full inventory count before close because we had a loss prevention audit coming up later that week. She left at her normal time. I told her I'd be done by 10:30, lock up the kiosk, and head out. By 10:15, most of the mall was completely dark. The main corridor lights on the 2nd floor dimmed to their overnight setting, about 20% of their normal brightness. The stores around me were all shuttered, metal gates pulled down and locked. My kiosk had its own overhead light that I kept on while I worked. It made the kiosk feel like an island in the middle of a dark ocean. At 10:20, the cleaning crews finished their section and moved on. I heard their cartwheels and Spanish radio fading down toward the east wing. Then it was just me. I had my earbuds in, working through my inventory spreadsheet, and everything was fine for about 20 minutes. Normal. Boring, honestly. Then I heard the footsteps, coming from the north end of the 2nd floor corridor. Slow, even deliberate. The kind of footsteps that echo in an empty mall in a way that they never would during the day when the noise of crowds swallows every individual sound. These were clear, unhurried, getting closer. I pulled out one earbud and listened. They kept coming. Same pace. Not rushing. I figured it was a security guard doing rounds. That was the logical thing. I leaned around the side of my kiosk to look down the corridor. The corridor was dark as far as I could see in both directions. The overhead pathway lights cast dim yellow pools every 30 feet or so. Nothing between those pools. But the footsteps were still coming. I stood up, looked harder down the north corridor. There was a man walking toward me. He was in one of the dark stretches between lights, so I couldn't make him out clearly. Just a shape, a silhouette, walking at that same slow, even pace. He was maybe 60 feet away. I waited for him to walk into the next pool of light so I could see him better. He never did. The footsteps stopped. The silhouette, whatever it was gone. Just stopped existing somewhere between the lights. I told myself the shadows were messing with me. I told myself the security guard had turned into one of the side corridors. I put my earbud back in and went back to my clipboard. But I couldn't focus. Every 30 seconds I was looking up, checking both directions of the corridor. At 10:47, I know the time because I checked my phone. Every single light in the north corridor went out at once. Not gradually, not flickering. All at once, like someone had thrown a switch. The already dim pathway lights just snapped off, and the north end of the 2nd floor became completely, totally black. I called security immediately. A guy named Ron picked up on the 2nd ring, sounded half asleep, and told me the north corridor lights were on a separate timer that sometimes malfunctioned. He said he'd reset them remotely. Told me not to worry about it. The lights came back on about 2 minutes later. In those 2 minutes, I sat completely still at my kiosk, staring into the blackness to the north, listening. And during those 2 minutes, right at the end of them, maybe 15 seconds before the lights came back, I heard something in the dark that I still cannot fully explain. It was breathing. Close. Maybe 20 feet away. Slow and steady, like someone standing still, just breathing, in the dark in front of my kiosk. The lights came on. Nobody there. I finished my inventory in 11 minutes. I don't know exactly how because I wasn't really conscious of doing it. My body just moved while my brain was somewhere else entirely. I locked the kiosk, walked to the nearest exit, and did not look behind me once. I told Ron about the breathing when I passed the security desk on my way out. He looked at me for a second, then looked back at his monitors. "Which kiosk you work at?" he said. "Center corridor. Second floor. The phone accessories spot." He nodded slowly. "You're not the first person from that spot to call me about weird stuff after hours," he said. He didn't elaborate, just went back to his screens. I quit 2 weeks later. Told my manager it was for school. That was partly true, but mostly I just couldn't do another closing shift alone. Not in that mall. Not after the lights went out. Not after whatever was standing 20 feet away from me in the dark, just breathing, waiting for me to notice it. I want to be upfront about something before I get into this. I do not believe in ghosts. I'm a pretty logical person. I like explanations. I like things that make sense. I am not the type to see a shadow and jump to the supernatural. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand that what I'm about to describe is not something I have a logical explanation for, and I've been trying to find one for 2 years. This happened at the Galleria in Houston, Texas. If you've never been, the Galleria is enormous. 3 levels, over 400 stores, 2 ice skating rinks inside the building. It is one of the most famous shopping destinations in the entire southern United States. During the holidays, it is absolutely packed, shoulder to shoulder, every single day. I was there in early December, 2 years ago, doing Christmas shopping with my girlfriend at the time, Renee. We split up for a bit. She wanted to go to Sephora. I had to hit up a couple spots on the 3rd floor. We agreed to meet at the food court in 45 minutes. I finished my shopping faster than I expected and had about 20 minutes to kill. I'm not much of a browser, so I found a bench on the 3rd floor overlooking the main atrium and sat down to scroll through my phone while I waited. 3rd floor of the Galleria at Christmas time is decorated like crazy. Garlands everywhere, lights strung along the railings, giant ornaments hanging from the ceiling. The whole place smells like that artificial Christmas tree smell they pump through the HVAC. It's genuinely nice. Festive, you know. I sat there for maybe 5 minutes, just chilling, watching the crowd move on the floors below me. That's when I noticed him. A man standing directly across the atrium from me on the opposite 3rd floor walkway. Just standing at the railing, looking across at me. Not at the crowd below. Directly at me, across the open atrium space. He was older, maybe late 60s, early 70s. Gray coat, dark pants, no shopping bags, no phone, just standing there, hands on the railing, looking straight at me. I looked away, looked back. He was still looking. I figured he had me confused with somebody, or he was just one of those people who zones out and happens to be looking in your direction. I looked down at my phone again. When I looked up about a minute later, he was gone. Okay, whatever. I went back to my phone. About 5 minutes later, I got a text from Renee saying she needed more time. I decided to walk around a bit. I went down the escalator to the 2nd floor, walked the length of the building, and came back up a different set of escalators on the far side of the atrium. When I got to the top and stepped onto the 3rd floor walkway, the exact walkway where the man had been standing, I stopped cold. He was on the other side of the atrium now, where I had just been sitting, standing at the railing, looking across at me. Again, directly at me. He had somehow crossed the atrium and was now standing at the exact spot I'd been at, looking at the exact spot he had just been at, where I was now standing. I want to be really clear about the timeline here. I had taken the escalators. I had walked the entire 2nd floor. There was no way this man, who I'd clocked as being in his late 60s at minimum, had moved that fast through that crowd to end up on the other side of the atrium in the same amount of time it took me. But there he was. I stared at him. He stared at me. Neither of us moved for probably 10 full seconds. Then I took out my phone and pointed it at him like I was taking a picture. I don't know why. Instinct, I guess. Something to do. He didn't react. Just kept looking. I took the picture and looked down at my phone to see it. When I looked back up, he was gone again. I walked fast back to the food court, found Renee, and told her I was done shopping and we needed to leave. She could tell something was off, but she didn't push it until we were in the car. When I described the man, her face did something I didn't expect. She got quiet and pulled out her own phone and started looking something up. She handed me the phone without saying anything. It was a Houston Press article from about 8 years ago. A story about a man, elderly, gray coat, who had gone missing from the Galleria during the Christmas shopping season. His family had reported him last seen on the 3rd floor. He'd wandered away from his daughter while they were shopping. They found his coat near the 3rd floor railing 3 days later. They never found him. The article had a photo. It was grainy, a family snapshot, clearly a few years old even at the time of publication. But I recognized him. I recognized the face. I handed Renee's phone back to her and didn't say anything for a long time. I still have the picture I took on my phone. I've looked at it probably 100 times. In the photo, across the atrium, at the 3rd floor railing, there's nobody there. The railing is empty. Garland strung along it. Christmas lights. Shoppers walking past. Nobody standing there at all. I know how this story sounds before I even start telling it. Mall of America, the biggest mall in the United States, 5 floors, 500 and some stores, an amusement park in the middle of it, a freaking aquarium in the basement. 40 million visitors a year. The idea that something genuinely terrifying happened to me inside that building sounds ridiculous. It sounds like exactly the kind of place where nothing dark could possibly occur because it is so deliberately, aggressively, fluorescently bright and loud and commercial. That's exactly what I thought, right up until it followed me home. I went to the Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota, on a Saturday in late October, 2 years ago this fall. I was visiting a college friend named Destiny who lived in the Twin Cities area. She had some family thing to deal with on Saturday afternoon, so I had a few hours to kill on my own. MOA is 20 minutes from her apartment. I figured I'd walk around, grab some food, maybe hit a few stores. I got there around 2 p.m. Place was packed, Halloween decorations everywhere, kids in costumes, the whole deal. Super normal, super busy. For the first hour, everything was fine. I did a couple laps of the retail floors, hit up a few stores I wanted to check out, grabbed food from the food court. Nothing unusual. Just a regular busy Saturday at the biggest mall in America. The weird thing started in the basement. The aquarium level. I'm a huge fan of aquariums, so I went down there to walk through the public viewing area. Not the paid attraction, just the lobby and the viewing windows available without a ticket. It was less crowded down there. Quieter. The blue light from the fish tanks made everything feel dreamlike. I was standing at one of the big viewing windows, watching a sand shark cruise back and forth, when I became aware that someone was standing right beside me, closer than a stranger normally would in an uncrowded space. I glanced over. It was a woman, younger, maybe mid-30s. Brown hair, normal looking, wearing a burgundy jacket. She was staring at the tank. Not at me, at the tank. But she was standing way too close. Like, shoulder to shoulder close when there was nobody else in a 10-foot radius. That kind of closeness that makes every instinct in your body stand up and pay attention. I took a small step to the side to create space. She took a small step to the side. Same distance between us. I looked at her again. She was looking at the tank, completely expressionless. I moved to the next viewing window. She followed. Same distance, same expression, not looking at me, just following. I said, "Hey, do I know you or something?" She turned her head and looked at me. Flat expression, no recognition, no embarrassment at being called out. She just looked at me for a second, then looked back at the tank. I walked away from the aquarium area entirely, took the escalator back up to the main floor, went into a store, an apparel store, decent amount of customers, and spent about 10 minutes in there browsing, trying to shake the creepy feeling. When I came out, she was standing at the entrance to the store, not shopping, not looking at her phone, standing at the entrance, watching the door. She looked at me when I came out. Same flat expression. I walked fast in the opposite direction, went into another store, stayed in there longer this time, 15 minutes. When I came out, I did a careful scan of the corridor in both directions before stepping out. She was 20 feet away, back to a pillar, looking directly at where I would exit the store. At this point, I want to be real with you. I was scared. Not spooked, not creeped out, actually scared. Because this wasn't a coincidence anymore. She was following me, deliberately, methodically, with absolutely no pretense of it being anything else. I found a security guard, big dude, stationed near the amusement park entrance, and I told him what was happening. Described the woman, the jacket, the behavior. He took it seriously, asked me to walk with him, and we did a loop of the nearby corridor. She was gone. The security guard took my number and told me to call if I saw her again. He walked me to my car in the parking ramp. I drove to Destiny's apartment, told her the whole story. She was shaken by it, but we figured, okay, weird person, she's gone now. It's over. I stayed at Destiny's that night. Her apartment is on the 4th floor of a building about 10 miles from the mall. At 11 p.m., Destiny's phone buzzed. She looked at it, and her face changed. "What?" I said. She turned her phone around. It was a notification from her building's front door camera app. Someone had rung the buzzer for her unit. On the camera feed, grainy, black and white, fisheye lens, a woman was standing at the front door of the building. Burgundy jacket, brown hair. I called 911. Officers responded within 10 minutes. By the time they arrived, the woman was gone. They took a report, reviewed the camera footage, confirmed a woman matching my description had been at the door. They found nothing else. I have never figured out how she knew where Destiny lived. I have never figured out how she got there that fast or why she came. I flew home to Chicago the next morning, kept my blinds closed for 2 weeks. I still think about her face at that aquarium window, how she didn't react when I called her out, how she just looked at me, then looked back at the fish, like I was the thing in the tank, like she was just watching to see what I'd do next.